Additional lines just $30 each. Click, call, or visit a Spectrum store today.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. Never do that. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris.
As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Good morning, I'm Bree Driscoll, and here's your Spectrum News in 90. China is imposing new retaliatory tariffs on some U.S. agricultural goods today. The measures include an extra 15% levy on chicken, wheat, corn, and cotton, and 10% on items like beef and soybeans. As far as our neighboring countries, Mexico and Canada, President Donald Trump says tariffs scheduled for April 2nd, quote, could go up. Canada's incoming Prime Minister addresses the ongoing tariff dilemma with President Donald Trump.
He's attacking Canadian families, workers, and businesses, and we cannot let him succeed.
Mark Carney was elected as the leader of the Liberal Party. Justin Trudeau will remain as Canada's Prime Minister for an undisclosed period of time while Carney settles in. A small plane crashes in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, near a retirement community. All 5 people aboard survived and were taken to the hospital. No one on the ground was injured. The FAA will investigate the crash. Israel cuts off electricity to Gaza. It's looking to pressure Hamas to extend the first phase of the ceasefire. Hamas wants to start negotiations on the second phase instead. That would involve releasing the remaining hostages in exchange for Israel withdrawing its troops. That's your Spectrum News in 90.
Good Monday morning, everybody. I'm meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Weather on the Ones forecast. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. We have a nice start to the week across the central part of the United States. Highs will be in the mid-70s from Kansas City all the way down into Dallas, Texas. We are going to be a bit unsettled, though, across the southeastern portions of the United States as a weak area of low pressure tracks across this area. But overall, temperatures are going to warm up nicely later in the week for everyone. We'll talk about that in more detail coming up in 10 minutes.
I'm Bree Driscoll, and thanks so much for joining us here on Spectrum News. Today is Monday, March 10th. China is imposing new retaliatory tariffs on some U.S. agricultural goods today. Last week, President Donald Trump imposed an additional 10% tariff on China on top of the 10% tariff already applied in February. The measures include an extra 15% levy on chicken, wheat, corn, and cotton, and 10% on items like beef and soybeans. Trump is doubling down on the success he thinks the tariffs will bring.
All I know is this. We're going to take in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs, and we're going to become so rich, you're not going to know where to spend all that money. I'm telling you, you just watch. We're going to have jobs. We're going to have open factories. It's going to be great.
Well, the country deals with potential economic issues from tariffs. President Trump is raising the possibility of a government shutdown. House Republicans unveiling a bill over the weekend, but Democrats are staunchly opposed. Our Daniel Grimes joins us now from Washington. Daniel, what is in the Republican proposal?
Well, if the thought of a government shutdown looming sounds familiar, that's because we were just in the same boat a few months ago. Now, this latest bill just released Saturday would keep the government funded through September 30th. It's a 99-page bill that would boost defense programs and money for immigration and customs enforcement while cutting non-defense spending below 2024 levels. Now, that's likely a non-starter for Democrats who say their biggest concerns are being shut out of the process entirely and the flexibility the legislation would give the Trump administration on spending.
I think that the leadership is going to try and do my way or the highway for a while, and then at some point they're going to need Democratic votes, and then people start negotiating.
Now, that prompted the president to suggest a shutdown is a very real possibility.
Could happen. I mean, the Democrats want that. They want to destroy the country.
Now, House Speaker Mike Johnson isn't counting on Democrats. In fact, the plan is for Republicans to stick together and pass it largely along party lines. Now, he's setting up a vote for tomorrow. Bree?
And Daniel, President Donald Trump declined to rule out the possibility of a recession when his tariffs take effect.
Yeah, that's right. So the president defended the tariff whiplash of last week, and even when pushed that CEOs and the American public would like to see more stability, he said the tariffs will help the country, quote, become very rich. Now, he also said he hates to forecast any economic downfall. That's why he didn't rule out the recession, but said that there will be periods of transition because of the, quote, very big changes that he's making to the country. Now, on Friday, also, the president said that new tariffs on lumber and dairy could be imposed on Canada sometime today or tomorrow. Bree?
All right, Daniel, thank you very much. Canada's Liberal Party elects Mark Carney to replace Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister of Canada. He addressed the ongoing tariff dilemma with President Donald Trump shortly after being elected.
There's someone who's trying to weaken our economy. Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, as we know, has put, as the Prime Minister just said, unjustified tariffs on what we build, on what we sell, on how we make a living.
Justin Trudeau will remain as Canada's Prime Minister for an undisclosed period of time while Carney settles in. Israel says it has cut off electricity to Gaza. Generators with fuel are powering LED lights in some areas. A week ago, the Israeli government stopped the flow of goods and supplies into the region. It's looking to pressure Hamas to extend the first phase of the ceasefire. Spectrum's Ariel Wessler has the latest.
The big concern in the desert is the water pumps and desalination plants that rely on electricity to produce clean drinking water for the 2 million people in Gaza. Israel has faced sharp criticism over cutting off supplies, but says it warned last week water and electricity could be next.
I just signed an order for the immediate halt of electricity to the Gaza Strip. We will operate all of the tools that are at our disposal to ensure the return of all the hostages.
Hamas said it would affect the hostages as well. It's believed Hamas still has 24 living hostages, including American Eden Alexander, as well as the bodies of 35 others from October 7th. Earlier this week, the White House confirmed it was in direct talks with Hamas, a break from a decades-long policy of not negotiating with a designated terrorist group.
I wanted to say to Hamas, what is the end game that you want here? Not the dream end game. But what do you think is realistic at this point? Because until we know that, it's very hard to reach some sort of truce or some sort of end to hostilities.
Israel pressuring Hamas to release half of the remaining hostages in return for a promise to negotiate a lasting truce. Hamas wants to start negotiations on the second phase instead. That would involve releasing the remaining hostages in exchange for Israel withdrawing its troops and both sides agreeing to a lasting peace.
I think you could see something like a long-term truce where we forgive prisoners, where Hamas lays down their arms, where they agree they're not part of the political party going forward. I think that's a reality. It's real close.
He thinks something could come together within weeks and expressed hope for a deal that would see all hostages released, not just the Americans. Hamas said Sunday it wrapped up its latest round of talks with Egyptian mediators without changing its position. Israel plans to send a delegation to Qatar on Monday, and when asked if the U.S. would speak with Hamas again, Bowler replied, "You never know." Ariel Wessler, Spectrum News.
Pope Francis is continuing to rest in a Rome hospital. The Vatican says the 88-year-old is responding positively to treatment for double pneumonia. He's been hospitalized since February 14th, but doctors are keeping his prognosis as guarded, meaning that he's not out of danger. Coming up on Spectrum News, a prominent Palestinian activist arrested over the weekend by federal authorities. What we know this morning.
Weather can be beautiful, inconvenient, and at times powerful, and it affects everything we do. At Spectrum News Plus, our weather experts update you with the information and the context you need so you can better plan your day. And we do it every 10 minutes. We're the calm in the storm. Weather on the Ones on Spectrum News Plus, exclusively on Spectrum. And get your weather anytime on the Spectrum News app.
I really am in the middle of nowhere. Every day is different. Chores, come on, homeschooling. And then I fit in the rug business. I just got a new batch of rugs that I'd love to show you. I have a website, and a lot of what I do is sharing my home life. Mommy's leaving. Reliable, high-speed internet is the foundation of our business. Spectrum was great. They went out of their way to make sure that I was okay and I was taken care of. Shoo! And that's the awesomeness of having Spectrum.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Weather on the Ones forecast. Over the weekend, firefighters were certainly busy in the Long Island, New York area where we had a couple of brush fires get out of control due to some strong winds and some dry conditions. That was the case for us on Saturday and Sunday. You can really see this video sent to us from Kevin Smith. That smoke really building in over a highway, causing some breathing concerns briefly over the weekend as well. But thankfully, this brush fire has been mostly contained as we start the new work and school week, so not anticipating that to cause many more concerns in the Long Island, New York area. However, across the northern and central plains, we do have a risk for some fire weather as well. Red flag warnings in place from the Dakotas down through Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, into portions of Missouri as well, where we have dry conditions and some gusty winds in the forecast over the course of the day today. And it's been very dry of late. Here's the latest drought monitor. And we have some extreme drought across portions of the Dakotas as well. Moderate to severe drought even into portions of the northeastern U.S. as well. So we could use some rain, and anytime you have dry conditions with some gusty winds in the forecast, you're going to get an increased risk for fire danger in your area. And we do have high wind watches and warnings in place for parts of the Dakotas and 2 portions of Montana, where gusts could occasionally get over 50 miles per hour in some locations. And you'll see that with futurecasts. We're going to see those gusts starting to pick up anywhere between 25 to 30 plus miles per hour, which is certainly strong enough to blow any loose outdoor items you may have located outside your home. I do think the winds will start to wind down once we get into the overnight hours tonight, as we'll see gusts around 15 to 20 miles per hour, which will lead to less favorable conditions for any fire danger in the northern plains. Temperatures, though, shouldn't be too bad this week. A nice taste of spring in store for us. Take a look at Houston jumping into the upper 80s as we get towards the end of this week. As we transition into the end of the week, we are going to see temperatures dip back down into the upper 40s in a place like New York, with some rain in the forecast across Los Angeles. But just about everyone is going to be feeling a nice taste of spring. Temperatures are going to warm back up. We'll talk about that coming up in 10 minutes.
And here's a look at what you need to know this morning. China is imposing new retaliatory tariffs on some U.S. agricultural goods today. The measures include an extra 15% levy on chicken, wheat, corn, and cotton, and 10% on items like beef and soybeans. Canada's Liberal Party elects Mark Carney to replace Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister of Canada. He says he will not let President Trump succeed in, quote, attacking Canadian families and businesses with tariffs. And a small plane crashes in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. All 5 aboard survived and were taken to the hospital. And that's a look at what you need to know. We're learning new information about a small plane crash in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. 5 were injured and rushed to the hospital. Spectrum's Katie Straight has the audio from inside the cockpit.
Lancaster Tower, Bonanza 347 Mike has an open door. We need to return for landing.
Frantic moments on a single-engine plane moments after takeoff from Lancaster Airport on Sunday. The plane, similar to the one in this photo, was flying to Ohio with a door open.
Bonanza 347 Mike, roger, runway 26, clear to land.
26, clear to land, 347 Mike.
Bonanza 347 Mike, pull up.
An air traffic controller first tells the plane to land and then pull up.
Rescue 1, Lancaster Tower, the aircraft is down out just behind the terminal on the parking lot street area.
The plane hitting several cars and bursting into flames. The Federal Aviation Administration says all 5 people on the plane were rushed to the hospital for treatment. The police chief says he's thankful no one died.
I don't know if I consider it a miracle, but the fact that we have a plane crash where everybody survives and nobody on the ground is hurt is a wonderful thing.
It's a much different scene from January when an Army helicopter and an American Airlines plane collided near Reagan National Airport, killing 67 people. President Donald Trump reacted to Sunday's crash on Air Force One.
They have times when things happen a little bit more often than normal, and then it goes back and you go many years without having a problem.
The National Transportation Safety Board and the Federal Aviation Administration are now investigating the crash in Pennsylvania. Katie Straight, Spectrum News.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio departs Florida for Saudi Arabia. There, he'll take part in talks between the U.S. and Ukraine. The meeting comes after an argument erupted during President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to the White House last month. Reactions continue to pour in after a pro-Palestinian and former Columbia student was detained by ICE over the weekend. The Trump administration confirming the arrest yesterday, saying the arrest of Mahmoud Khalil was due to, quote, activities aligned to Hamas. The arrest has left his community alarmed and his loved ones confused. Here's Spectrum's Ron Lee.
We've tried to come to a middle ground with the administration to protect the safety of the students, to prevent the NYPD from coming into campus, yet the university refused to do that.
Nearly 1 year after pro-Palestinian activist Mahmoud Khalil addressed the media during the height of the Columbia University protests last spring. Word of his arrest by ICE agents this weekend had prominent civil rights attorney Norman Siegel questioning whether Khalil's detainment had violated his First Amendment right to freedom of speech.
The real test for free speech is not when you agree with the speaker's views. The real test is when you allow the person to speak and not be punished when you disagree with them.
Khalil's attorney, Amy Greer, said Sunday that he was arrested around 8:30 Saturday night by ICE agents who claimed they were acting on a State Department order to revoke his green card. The arrest took place near the Columbia campus at an apartment that Khalil shares with his wife, who is 8 months pregnant. In a statement Sunday night, Secretary of State Marco Rubio provided insight into Khalil's arrest, posting on X a picture of Khalil as well as an article about his situation, with a caption that said, "We will be revoking the visas and/or green cards of Hamas supporters in America so that they can be deported." According to U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, a green card can be revoked on specific grounds that include committing fraud or misrepresentation during the application process, security-related reasons, and committing serious crimes such as murder, rape, money laundering, and drug trafficking. While it is not entirely clear if Khalil has committed any of the offenses listed, in a statement, NYIC, which stands for New York Immigration Coalition, criticized the arrest, saying, quote, "Targeting a student activist is an affront to the rights of Mahmoud Khalil and his family. This blatantly unconstitutional act sends a deplorable message that freedom of speech is no longer protected in America." The New York Civil Liberties Union offered a similar statement, saying, quote, "It's clear that the Trump administration is selectively punishing Mr. Khalil for expressing views that aren't MAGA approved, which is a frightening escalation of Trump's crackdown on pro-Palestine speech and an aggressive abuse of immigration law. And while Columbia University has issued a statement saying in part that it is committed to complying with all legal obligations and supporting the school's student body and campus community, some students expressed concern that the university has not mentioned specific support for Khalil.
I think that he deserves protection whether he had just graduated yesterday or 10 years ago. He was still a student of Columbia. He still probably paid thousands of dollars in tuition to attend here. So it's still the responsibility of the school to protect its students.
Ron Lee, Spectrum News.
Just ahead on Spectrum News, the renovations coming to the neighborhood of legendary trumpet player Louis Armstrong. Why his neighbor's house is the focus of a new community space.
Spectrum News Plus. News from a new perspective, dedicated to refreshing storytelling and empowering communities across the nation. With balanced reporting, providing real context and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day.
Here's a look at your forecast across the country.
Local stories, connecting communities. We are Spectrum News Plus. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
Starting a business is hard. You have to stay connected at all times.
As we've been growing the studio, Spectrum's been there every step of the way. I'm always able to make the phone call that I need. I'm able to shoot that text message or that email. Every vital piece of equipment that we have here uses Spectrum.
Fast, reliable internet, starting at $40 a month, backed by the Spectrum commitment to keep your business connected.
Food isn't just fuel to live, it's fuel to grow. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. When people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger, and together we can open endless possibilities for people to thrive. Visit feedingamerica.org/actnow.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Happy Monday, everybody. I'm meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your weather on the ones forecast. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. As we closed out the day on Sunday, we had this area of low pressure work its way across the southeast, and that brought us some periods of heavy rainfall across Florida and in portions of Georgia, where we had rainfall totals exceeding 3 inches in a few spots as well. Now, area of low pressure is starting to work its way off the southeastern coast over the course of the day today. You'll notice we're going to stay bone dry in the central U.S., where we have that risk for some fire danger, red flag warnings in place in the central and northern plains. But that moisture is far away from that, and it's working its way off the southeast coast with some periods of heavy rain through the first half of the day in a place like South Carolina, down through Georgia as well. Not anticipating this to cause many concerns over the course of the day, but we do keep a low-end threat for some strong to severe thunderstorms to develop across the Sunshine State. Not a big risk, as I mentioned before, but any concern with severe weather that manages to develop is going to be with damaging winds gusting over 50 miles per hour. But aside from that, though, we're not anticipating flooding or anything of that matter. Most of this wet weather is in and out of here by the evening, and could be seeing some of those showers across the Carolinas down into portions of Georgia as well. But by Tuesday morning, we are dry and quiet all across the lower 48, with the exception of the western coast. That's where we're going to have some moisture coming in from the Pacific, and that's going to lead to potential flooding concerns in California, down through Oregon and the Washington coast as well, where we could see some snowfall for some of the Sierra Nevadas as well. But most of the rainfall this week is going to be falling across the western half of the United States, where we could see some rainfall totals exceeding 3 to 5 inches, and even again across the southeastern U.S. Another storm system will pay us a visit towards the end of the week, which will bring around 2 to 3 inches of rainfall as well. But notice we are going to be pretty quiet across the central U.S., not expecting anything more than 1/4 of an inch of rainfall over the next 7 days. The big talking point this week is certainly going to be those spring-like temperatures we're going to be seeing over the course of the day today. Take a look at Kansas City, 77 degrees this afternoon, 73 in the St. Louis region. We'll be in the upper 50s, low 60s across the southeast today, but we are going to see that warm up in temperatures as we transition into our Tuesday, jumping into the lower 70s all across the southeast. Take a look at the northern plains, staying on the cooler side of things, but that is still technically above the average for this time of year. We'll be in the 40s, approaching the low 50s as we get towards the middle of the week across the Chicago region. But take a look at this. The next 3 days are going to be 22, 23 degrees above the average in Kansas City. A nice taste of spring in store for us. Along with the eastern half of the United States, our temperatures will range anywhere between 10 to 20 degrees above the average. So make plans to get outside and enjoy the early taste of spring.
It's been more than 20 years since the former home of music great Louis Armstrong and his wife Lucille opened for public tours in New York. 2 years ago, an education center opened its doors across the street. Recently, it was announced that a third building would be added to the campus. Here's Spectrum's Roger Clark with an exclusive look at the historic site.
This red brick house on 107th Street in Corona, Queens isn't just any house.
In search of my love.
It was the home of legendary trumpet player and vocalist Louis Armstrong and his wife Lucille, who lived here from 1943 until his death in 1971 and hers in 1983. It's now the Louis Armstrong House Museum. Throughout the years, their neighbors in this house next door were the Geraldos, including close friend Selma Geraldo.
He was a very, very loving man, very generous man.
When Geraldo died in 2011 at the age of 88, she left her house to the museum. It's getting a $3.5 million renovation through a partnership between the city's Departments of Design and Construction, managing the project, and Cultural Affairs, which is funding it.
There'll be a full gut renovation inside, bringing everything up to code, also providing access, new fire alarms, HVAC. We're also opening up one of the bedrooms upstairs, so that way it's a larger space for programming and for other things that would be working well for the museum.
Selma's place will be office space when it's renovated, but it will also be a community space where we honor her legacy and the legacy of others who knew the Armstrongs and made this community what it was.
The renovation follows the 2023 opening of the Louis Armstrong Center across the street, which features educational programs, exhibitions, performances, and the Armstrong Archives. So the museum will be comprised of a 3-building campus and garden, even more space to remember Louis and Lucille and their time in the neighborhood.
Bringing world-class, state-of-the-art educational and cultural opportunities right in the heart of Corona, Queens, in your own backyard. You can wake up, you can walk down the street, you can come visit, you can go shop, you can go to a restaurant afterwards. This is about the economic vibrancy of New York City, and we are so excited about it.
The project is expected to be completed in the summer of 2026, cementing the presence of the Armstrongs and Selma even more thoroughly in the community they called home.
Roger Clark, Spectrum News.
And we are marching into our Spectrum News in 90 right after this short break. I'm Bree Driscoll. Thanks so much for watching. Stay with us.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. I love you. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, "I love you" to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
It's game time at the arena, and 20,000 fans are looking for a win. With an ultra-high-speed network and seamless Wi-Fi, fans can get in the door fast and share the game's best moments in real time. And with Spectrum Business committed to keeping them connected 100% of the time, they won't miss a second of the action. A secure, reliable connection from Spectrum Business means the fan experience is a guaranteed win.
Sometimes in life, in order to move forward, it helps to look back. To learn from the pioneers and trailblazers.
To gain inspiration from those who came before us.
To show us what it means to act with empathy and to show that love has no labels.
Join WWE and Love Has No Labels throughout the year in celebrating people from all communities and heritages.
Because when love has no labels, that's a love we can all fight for.
Women are bad with money. That's what the world's been saying for centuries. But now we've got something to say.
Save it. It's time to save ourselves by saving our money.
Until we're no longer 80% more likely than men to live in poverty in retirement.
Save it. The falsehoods, the feelings of fault.
Then the funds. Learn how to save for your retirement at WeSaySaveIt.org.